Hi, I'm Jim Fuhs from Fuhsion Marketing, and you're listening to the Social Media Talks podcast with Alan Hennessy from compassmedia.ie.
Welcome to Social Media Talks podcasts, brought to you by compassmedia.ie.
Hello and thank you for joining me. This is the Social Media Talks podcast, brought to you by compassmedia.ie, episode number 94. I'm your host, Alan Hennessy, and this is the podcast to help business owners who want to learn more about social media marketing. And if you'd like to listen to any of our previous podcasts, you can log on to our website at compassmedia.ie/podcasts. You can also join our Facebook group by logging on to facebook.com/groups/social media talks. And I'm looking forward to today's conversation. I have a fantastic guest. Mr. Jim Fuhs is joining us, and Jim is all about marketing in the Marine Corps way. He is also a digital marketing consultant, a live streamer, a podcaster, and a virtual events producer. Jim has over 20 years of highly successful leadership experience as a Marine Corps officer and brings that to bear in an ever-changing world of marketing and technology. As a Marine, he learned to adapt and overcome, and he brings this mindset to your business to help you achieve victories in the boardroom and also in the marketplace. And today we're going to be talking about a new venture that Jim has embarked on as well. And it is, of course, virtual events. And Jim's going to be telling us all about how we can set up and deliver a great virtual event, and also how we can promote it across social media and digital marketing. So without further ado, I think we will transition over to the interview with Jim. Hi Jim, how are you? Thanks for joining us today on the Social Media Talks podcast. It's a pleasure to have your company. How are you?
I'm doing great, Alan, and thank you so much for having me join you today. Very excited to be here.
Brilliant stuff. And of course, today we're going to be talking all about virtual events and how we can promote them on social and across digital. But I think before we get stuck into our chosen topic today, maybe you might just give us a little bit of a background on yourself. Not that people won't know you because you're across all of the social platforms and you're everywhere. But for anyone who is living under a rock, let's find out more a little bit about Jim.
Well, thank you, Alan. Yeah, so Jim Fuhs is my name. I live in Marietta, Georgia, outside Atlanta. And my tagline is I do marketing the Marine Corps way. I'm a retired Marine Lieutenant Colonel, been retired for 11 years. And I do podcasting, live streaming, remote live stream production. And I've actually really started to get into a little bit of the virtual event thing, a big shift during these last few months. And so I think that's part of the reason we're going to talk about that today. So been involved full-time in the digital marketing field for 4 years now.
Wow, that is some career, and a Marine as well. Just a Marine as well. The way it was very, it's very little, very nonchalant the way is it, but huge, and of course brilliant stuff as well. And and of course we met online a number of months back, and I suppose it's more than a number of months. I think it's nearly a year at this stage, and we've having conversations on and off over the last couple of months. And so we said, look, we have to get on and we have to talk, because we were actually having a conversation about virtual events, and you brought up some really valid points, and I think it's quite important, I suppose, in the time that we're living at the moment with the the pandemic and the COVID crisis and stuff like that. That I think virtual events have become really, they've come into their own over the last few months, and I think it's so important that people understand and have an idea as to what they should be really doing. So I know you have a brief planning guide around this. So maybe you might speak about that.
Right. I think it's kind of always we have to think about, with the end in mind, what exactly do you want your virtual event to accomplish? So first of all, is it something that's going to be educational? So maybe it's going to be a webinar format. You're not going to have any interaction, but you also, in deciding what platform you're going to use, is it going to be interactive? Do you want it to be entertaining? Because the last thing you want is people to come to a boring virtual event because you really won't get a lot of people coming back. Are you looking to do networking? Because a lot of people are, it's the whiff 'em. What's in it for me? If I'm going to go to an event and I'm not going to meet people, one, if you're asking me for money, that's probably even a bigger thing. And if it's a free event, are people going to, do it because it's free? And I think that's where a book I read back when I was getting my master's called it was on economics, called The Tragedy of the Commons. If you're familiar with that, it's basically when people don't have to pay for something, there's no investment, they don't really take it seriously. So even having a small charge, you're going to most likely get those people to come because like, hey, I put skin in the game. Or if it's a free event, I missed it, no big deal. Yeah. And then finally, do you want to have vendor booths? That's, I think, something we forget about, because sponsors could be a great way to allow you to use some of these platforms because they're basically going to pay for the cost of the technology. And so when you look at that, Alan, those factors are going to determine what platform you can use, because platforms, and even we talk about live streaming, whether it's Zoom or StreamYard or some of these others, Ecamm, are going to limit you in capability for how your presenters and speakers are going to be able to operate.
And I think it's very important, like when we think about virtual events, we sort of think, okay, this is just going to be me and someone else on screen or something. And, that is, okay, you can do that. But I think if you look at, I suppose, exhibitions and networking events that are happening, I suppose, in the real world, and when I say the real world, the physical world, I think we expect so much more. From if I'm going to an event, I'm saying to myself, okay, I'm going to meet loads of people here. I'm going to network. I'm going to hopefully I'm going to learn some more new ideas or whatever it is from the speakers. And I'm also going to be able to go around and have a look at all the stands and stuff like that. And then I think when we look at a virtual event, people have, I suppose sometimes it can be, I suppose, very narrow-minded, that they just go, okay, well, this is the only capabilities that I can do. So this is all I'm going to do. Whereas actually you're coming at this from a totally different angle where you can actually expand this out. And, the idea, as you say, of educating and entertaining and interactive and, and all of that networking as well. It's all super. And I would totally agree. I know from previous experiences of doing, I suppose, online courses and online webinars and stuff like that, where you say it's for free, you get a load of people that will book but won't turn up. But whereas, as you say, if they have money, if they put money to it, they will go, okay, well, I'm paying me books, so I'm going to be definitely going to be going to this. So, I think I totally agree with you with regards to pricing it up as well, because even if it's a nominal fee, I think it has to be a good incentive for people to arrive on the day.
Absolutely. And I think you bring up a good point too, because I think I personally believe we're never going to go back, if you want to call it, to the way things were before. And so I think the hybrid and virtual is the future, at least for a while. And so you really have to be thinking through, what am I going to get out of it? Because I'm sure you've heard too, it's like, oh my gosh, there's so many virtual events. And then I laugh sometimes because I think because we're in the marketing space, we're surrounded by the same people. So we all see these events. But if you go talk to your friends and families and even business colleagues, a lot of them like, oh, I had no idea.
Yeah.
I had no idea that these events are going on. So I think there's still lots of opportunities for success for people.
Yeah, and that is a very good point, because as you say, we are in this space, so of course we're watching what's going on. But there's, other people are getting on with their business. They're either, if they're getting back into the office or they're still working virtually, their heads are down and they're doing what they do. They're not looking for these events. And I think that's where, especially here in Ireland, there'll be a lot of radio advertising saying, this event is on in such and such place and whatever. And that's how they're getting to hear about this. And they're watching their social media to a certain degree, but not the way we would. And I think as well as that, over the last couple of months, I've noticed that people are, again, a little bit more tech savvy when it comes to online and virtual events. From when the start of this sort of pandemic, it was very, very limited, and people saying, oh, how do I turn on my camera, or how do I get into this meeting? Whereas now they're actually jumping straight in and they're finding it. So I think there has never been a time, I suppose, a better opportunity to launch a virtual event.
Right, absolutely. And I think too, right, just the fact that people are more willing to engage because they've had to, as we say, at least here in the US, like everybody is Zooming, right? Zoom has become a verb. So now we're getting to that point where how do I look better on camera? Am I more interactive? Because now you're having to do virtual presenting even on a daily basis, because you just may not be able to get that in-person meeting.
And I suppose like we look at the educational piece of it, because it's probably one of the biggest factors that brings people to sort of an event is because they want to be educated. And I always say, I use the three acronyms of entertain, educate and inform, and I think they are the most important part, because without them you don't have a good interaction. So when it comes to like the educational piece, you were talking there about webinars and stuff like that. What would be your suggestions with regards to webinars and structuring?
Well, I think one of the fallacies, I would almost call it, is what people need to be careful about is it's like, oh, I want to go live on my social media. And the problem is that I see with that is you're on rented land. You could get kicked off, you could lose your audience. And so I think, whether you host it on your website or some of these different learning platforms like, Thinkific or Teachable or Kajabi, now you have a place you can take people to. And with the webinar version, you're really doing more of a presentation that you want to make evergreen. In fact, I think, Alan, aren't you coming up with a course here soon?
I am, yes. I have a LinkedIn course that's coming online soon. Oh, thanks for dropping that plug in there as well.
Yeah, so just, that to me is a perfect example of you're creating this, but with the idea that people are going to come back after the fact. And so that's what you want to think about with your webinar is like, this isn't just a one-shot deal. I'm going to want to get people later. They're going to watch replays. This is something that's going to ideally be evergreen, at least for a period of time before things change, or you can always even update that course. So I think but that kind of goes back to one of the keys, right? As you and I talk about at times, the 4 E's of social media even, right? That education is so important because, it goes back to it's about them. It's not about us.
Yeah, and I think that's very true. Yeah, and I do totally agree. Like even like with this course that we're developing at the moment, it's like that. I am sort of saying, okay, right, we're going to do a version of it live first, and then we're going to record it, and then we're going to be able to play it back and have it as an online course. And I think that's where this webinar type of an interaction comes alive. Because there is, like, people sort of say to themselves, oh, okay, well, a webinar is just the person on screen talking. But there is so much more that you can do with webinars. And, like, that's a whole nother episode, I think, if we were to go into webinars. But, it's very important. And then I suppose, with the interactive stuff, all I can say is thank God for StreamYard. And Zoom, it is just fun. They're just too phenomenal. Like, they're the ones that I would use. Now, I know there is other brands on the market, and I'm not saying that there's not, but I've just found that StreamYard is so really good. We had Ross Brand on talking about it only a couple of weeks back on the podcast as well, and he was of the same opinion. And I know you use it a hell of a lot because you also have the Tim and Jim show, right, which goes out every week, and Dealcasters as well, which is on Amazon. And I think you probably I think as far as I'm aware, you use the technology.
We use StreamYard, absolutely. I mean, StreamYard, and StreamYard actually sponsors the Tim and Jim show. StreamYard is actually, what I love about it is, one, they're constantly making changes to make it better for us as producers, and as well as the ability for us to just do more things. And, I think it's RTMP. Sometimes I get dyslexic. You're able to bring it into these other platforms. Like, you can use StreamYard on programs like Hopin and programs like Swap Card, so that you can use the valuable production capability to really up the actual show itself, or the presenter, as opposed to just I'm just coming live on my video camera and I can't do anything, and everything from screen sharing to running video clips, just so many things. And what I like too, when you are on social, you can also, to your interactivity point, you can actually share viewer comments on screen. And that makes them feel good because it shows you're paying attention to them.
Yeah, and I suppose there's two sides to that. Is because, look, if you're getting the comments and you're able to bring them comments up on screen, as you say, people feel that they're involved in the conversation. They don't feel that they're just a spectator. They're actually involved in the conversation, and I think that's great because it gives a great bit of interaction. Plus, as well, it also makes either the guest or the guest speaker or even the presenter job a lot more easier because they can answer the questions that people are wanting, answers to, type of thing that they can, and I think that's a really good point of the interactive piece of the event. And then, of course, moving on, we're talking about entertaining, and there's so much entertaining that we can do. I've seen such innovative ways that people have done these events, and the way they've actually used, the entertainment piece out of it.
Right. I actually saw one last night that you might want to check out, Alan. It's called Mentimeter, and it actually lets you run like these interactive live polls while you're doing your show. As an example, I'm going to see if there's a way to actually bring it in to StreamYard while you're doing it. But the people can like jump on their phones and they log in with a code for that specific show, and you can actually see results and have standings. And so just, it kind of makes things a lot more fun. So there's always things that we can be looking at, because as this stuff evolves, interactivity and entertainment is so important. And then, there's even people out there doing like trivia games. So that could even be a part of your virtual event, as maybe you have some games going on to keep people inspired, and even maybe have some giveaways involved with that.
And I've seen, we had Brian Schulman on the podcast, and he's LinkedIn. He's everywhere. But he does that show where on Saturday where he just shouts out, and it's so different than any other show. He just, like, they have the emojis, they do all the the different heads and stuff. It's just, now you have to be on your game to be watching it, because it's just so interactive. But it's good, but it's a different take, and it's something that's changed. It's, you know what I mean, it's not the humdrum of just hello, we are here, we're going to talk.
Right.
I always think of Mrs. Doubtfire, the film, where Robin Williams he's just the runner, he's in the studio, and your man's doing the interactive show, and he just talks like that, and I just saying, and then he changes it all up. So I just saying, have a bit of fun as much as anything else. Obviously you want to be getting your message across, and depending on your audience, but I think it's about showing your personality, especially when it comes to being on screen. Because people want to see that. They don't want to see a scripted text and, this is what we're going to say, this is how we're saying, we're not veering off it. When, I think it's very important that we entertain as much as anything else. I done a LinkedIn Live only the other day with Cami Heiser, and we were on StreamYard, but we kept passing the stapler to each other. And people were just, the comments that were coming back and saying, this is so much fun, and it broke the mold, I suppose, in the sense it was something different to do. So I have to start thinking about doing some more stuff like that. I suppose moving on to the networking piece of the event planning, and I'm just sort of going through the process here of what we were talking about early at the top of the show. So the networking piece, what's your sort of take on that?
I think that's very important, because I think especially now, people, if they're going to spend time and money on events, they want to get something out of it. So a lot of times they're looking for connections. And so if you can make sure, and that's where, Zoom has the ability to do Zoom rooms, but also like the platform that I'm getting ready to use for a virtual event called Hopin, and I know Swap Card as well, will allow you to come into the event, and network within the event without having to use Zoom. And it's a much richer, easier experience. It'll even let you do like one-on-one networking, and you can set it up as the event planner. Like, okay, we're going to have like speed networking. You can also have these like sessions where you got like 10 people on screen and everybody else is like watching and commenting. And then you can swap people in and out without having to do anything, extremely difficult. And I think that's the other thing. You got to make it easy to network, let people build like their profile. So I can say, okay, I can go to Alan's LinkedIn and I can, send him a friend request. Hopefully I'm not trying to pitch you, because we know we hate when people connect to pitch. So that's our LinkedIn lesson for today. But I think networking is so important in today's environment, because we want to do business with people that we know, like, and trust. Well, here's where we can start that first step of the know at these by networking in these virtual events.
Yeah, and I'm forever preaching that. I'm always saying that, even like when it comes to when we're doing training with people, that is not just to jump straight in and say, oh, I want to connect with you, because at the end of the day, I don't know you. And I want to get to know you first. And then I really want to like you first. And then when I like you, then I might trust you. And then I might start connecting with you, So that know, like, and trust, it's only when you break it down that people start to understand. And that's the beauty of networking, As I've always said, you go to a networking meeting, you don't just hand someone a contract when you meet them for the first time. You get to know them. And I think that's the great thing. And I think the virtual networking has become, it's really has taken its own legs in regards to that. Like, I know we do the global tea break, and you're on it, and you've come on it many times, and it's just been fantastic with the amount of growth and the amount of people doing business with each other and helping each other, and not necessarily saying, okay, well, what am I getting out of this? It's sort of like, well, and there's a good friend of mine, Howard Hughes, who said we used to do a networking meeting many years ago, and he used to say, it's not about getting business here and on the day with the person that's been sitting next to you. It's about getting the referrals from them. And that's what makes a network what it is, So I think it's very important.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, that's, and it is. I mean, and I think, and even from a networking perspective, a couple other ideas is maybe you set up some groups ahead of time. Like maybe you have a Facebook group pre-event or a LinkedIn group pre-event where people can get to know each other a little bit before the event even happens. And I think that's another thing, is like, don't always just think about, the day of the event as being the end all and be all. And I think if you can create that community, right, this can help you for future events as well.
And I've seen it before, and I thought it was very innovative. Is they actually this event that was happening, they actually set up a Twitter chat, and they had it going for about 6 weeks before the event. And that's how, and then when they did the event, the actual physical event, it was amazing because everyone knew each other and there was so much interaction because you were actually meeting the person and, you were talking to that person. And that's the same, I suppose, with a virtual event. We can now move it online, that when we do come on screen, that we can say, oh, I've been talking to this person. I've been talking to Jim for the last 6 or 8 weeks, and I've learned a lot more, and now I'm face to face with them. And I think that's another great point. So as you say, groups and even Twitter chats are really, really helpful for building, as you say, that community. And what happens is, I think they become loyal to you. So when you do run your next event, they're going to be more inclined to either come back to it, or they're going to help you promote it even more again. So it does, it has so much value in that. And I suppose that brings us nicely on to promoting the event here. So, social media, it's phenomenal for this. It's, but done in the right way, I think it can be very effective. And I've seen some bad examples, but I've seen some really, really good examples of it.
Right. I think one of the, first of all, if you're going to have speakers, right, you want to help your speakers not only promote themselves, but promote your event. So one thing you can come up with is, like, we call it a speaker card, which is basically you've got their picture and it would be like, I'm speaking at, and the event name, and it's got the dates and it's got the link, and even maybe give them a a referral link where maybe you're going to give them a little bit of credit if it's a paid event, but give them an incentive to promote the event. Well, first of all, wouldn't you feel good, Alan, if you saw your picture on something saying you're going to be a speaker, right? And so now your network sees like, wow, I didn't know Alan was going to be a speaker at this thing. I'm going to check it out because I like Alan and I know he brings value to the table. So that's one way. I think another thing with this event we're promoting, this goes back to a very powerful feature of LinkedIn is documents. Take that sponsorship PDF and make that into a post that's much more interactive than just maybe, sending stuff out there or just posting a picture of the event. I just posted one 2 days ago. I've already had over 1,000 views about an upcoming event that I'm going to help manage. So I think documents, PDFs can be a very powerful tool to promote with LinkedIn. Twitter, obviously, is one of our favorite platforms because you can keep going out there, right? It's not like with the tweet last I've heard 18 minutes. Schedule things maybe several times a day, change up who's speaking, what's going to be going on at the event, give people some incentive. Instagram's another one, maybe do some short Instagram stories or even some Instagram lives talking about what's going to be going on at the event. And then let's not forget the classic email, right? If you've got an email list, get it out there, get people that incentive. You really want to create that FOMO, that fear of missing out. In fact, another way to promote the event while you've actually started it, if you're still willing to bring people in, is, and this is something we're going to be doing, you could actually go live on, say, your Facebook page and your Twitter and do what we call like a live look-in and say, hey, guys, we're live and, we're watching Alan speak. And then it's not too late. Come to the link in the comments and get your ticket. And then you shut it off. You're like, oh, I want to see more.
Yeah.
So that's, I think, another great thing about StreamYard is it gives me the ability to go out to these other platforms live and then shut them off and keep myself in the event itself.
Yeah, and I think, as you say, like it's that I suppose it's people want more when they say, oh, it's like anything. It's the, as you say, it's the fear of missing out, and then when they do get a little taste of it, they go, oh, I want more of that. I want more, and that's when they jump on. And and I think they're very key. They're key points. Like I know we were on the launch team for a new book that's happening, and like that, Mike Alton had asked us to help out, and like that, he had so much content ready for us to help promote it. So I think doing that little bit of work and that little bit of, I suppose, prep work before your event and making sure that you have the speakers on board and that the speakers are going to help you promote it. And, most speakers, if they are talking at an event, they want to promote themselves as much as anything else, saying, look, I'm speaking at this event or whatever. And I think that gives you a whole nother audience, so it's being strategic as well, and the people that you're getting to speak at your event as well. So think about that as well. Take that into consideration. And then, it's producing the event as well. When you have your speakers on is making sure that runs well, because the last thing you want is to be having a virtual event and the tech to crash. I think it's the most frightening part of any event is everything going to work? I know when we were doing physical events, I was there at 6 a.m. making sure that every piece of kit was working, and I double check and triple check it. So, but look, it is what it is. And sometimes things do happen, and people understand it as much as anything else.
Oh yeah, and I think that's a great point. I think, and that's one of those things that's also going to tell you if you're working with a company that knows what they're doing. If they're not offering like, hey, we're going to do some checks ahead of time, even maybe having your vendors walk through the process of what's going to happen for them if you have these virtual vendor booths, you might want to take a second look, because the last thing you need to have happen is the day of the event, like the speakers don't know how they're getting on or any of these things. So there has to be some hand-holding for the participants outside of the attendees as well.
And you spoke about I suppose, the expo booths, as what you called it earlier on. And it's something that I thought was brilliant. I know we've spoke about it before the podcast, only a couple of weeks back about this. And I just thought it's so innovative, because if you can do this, it would just increase so much visibility for everything, and I suppose for the event, and makes you a market leader. So maybe you might speak a little bit about the expo booths.
Oh, absolutely. So let's say that Compass Media wanted to promote an event. Well, we could give you a virtual booth where you could either have a video that people, when they come visit your booth, right, they actually get to watch this video, and then they could say, oh, I'm interested. And now you've got the lead. Or you could even be live in your booth, where you're just kind of, just like if you're sitting in a booth at a trade show, and I pop into your booth. It's like, hey, Alan, tell me a little bit about your business. And you're able to have a conversation. The other piece too is you can create, and this is where we love StreamYard, we can create these short video clips for our sponsors that we kind of run as ads during the presentations as we're switching out speakers. So there's really a lot of things you can do. And then just those three things alone, as a business that wants to get some visibility, that might very well be spend a little bit of money, because you're also going to be able to measure based on attendees, how many people got back, like, hey, this is worth my time. I'm going to do this again.
Yeah, and that's a really, really good point with regards to, when you're changing speakers and stuff like that, because you know yourself, if I know from past experience, if I have two people on a call or something like that, or for a show I'm doing, it's like, okay, thanks for joining us, and now we're going to get such and such on screen, and you're sort of, I suppose you're blagging it in a sense to a certain degree, whereas if you can actually turn around and say, okay, we'll be back after this. We're just going to have a word from either our sponsors or for one of our exhibitors. To have that it just plays a 10-second or 5-second clip of them. How good is that? That's really, and that's, you've given me another idea now for something else. See, you're always learning. I always say you always learn, and you always learn from Jim. There's no doubt about it.
Thank you.
Full of such fabulous ideas and great experience as well from all of this. Yeah, no, I think that's a really good point, and a lot of people may sort of rethink that one and say, okay, right. So you can expect probably a few calls on that one as well. But I do think, right. I know you have the shows that you do, and I'm sure you have a lot of information on that about these. So, and I'm sure there's so much more that we could talk about with regards to event planning and event organisation and stuff like that. So I think there is a huge amount there for people to take in. I just think it's so important that we talk about this, because I think at the moment, the way the COVID crisis is, the pandemic, and even, I suppose, as you said earlier on, it's a sort of a new norm we're starting to get into. I don't think we're ever going to go back to the way we were first, which it is. Good points and bad points on that, but I think it's sort of opened up our eyes to a whole new world of, I suppose, events and doing these virtual events.
Right. And I think too, and it's not so much, I think a part of it is even the economics. As companies now are understanding that people can actually work virtually, well, now I don't have to spend all this money on travel and lodging and everything. So it's not so much, I don't think that people don't want to do the face-to-face, but it's like, if I can have you sleep in your own bed, attend an event for a few hours and still get work out of you, the company's going to get more productivity and also save money. So I think that's another thing that people have to look at, that I think companies are saying, hey, this actually works. I think you and I both have been working virtually for quite a while, so this isn't new to us. It's like everyone's finally coming over to our side of the
Yeah, they're coming over to the dark side. You gotta love it, don't you? But I do, I agree totally. Like, I know at the start of the pandemic, I was getting phone calls left, right and centre, and how do I do this, or how do I get online? And even companies that I'd spoke to previous to any pandemic, I was saying, you should be doing a little bit more online. So, I haven't got the time, or I don't know how to do it. And then I suppose the pandemic struck, and everyone says, right, how do I do this now? And I think now people are starting to get a lot more comfortable with this type of interaction and this type of, I suppose, business. And I think that's what it is at the end of the day. It is business, and it's really good to see that the online world has become so powerful. I know it always was, but it's become even more, I suppose, powerful and more important to people now as much as anything else.
Absolutely.
Yes. Jim, before we go, I always ask my guests one simple question, and it's not related to the podcast, but the question I pose to you is, if you had the chance to invite someone to dinner, whether it be past or present, who would it be and why?
I would actually invite John F. Kennedy to dinner. I read his books, about PT 109. I just always thought that he was an amazing man in the history of the United States, that his life was cut too short. So I'd love to have a conversation with him, because I really looked up to him growing up as a young man.
And he was fabulous. And I think not just for the United States of what he done, I think what he did for the world, and he was just an incredible person. If people want to reach out and chat with you a little bit more, Jim, how can they get in contact with you?
I'd say the two best ways to get in touch with me, and you probably know this, Alan, LinkedIn, go to Jim Fuhs or Fuhsion Marketing. I have a company page there, or Twitter, because I love to have those conversations, and that's where I'm really most active. I mean, I'm on all the socials, but if you really want to catch me quickly, those are the two fastest ways to catch my attention.
Brilliant stuff. And of course, you also have the website fuhsionmarketing.com as well. And also check out Jim's podcast. He's too nice to say, but I'm going to say it because Launch Your Live, the podcast, is a phenomenal piece of work, and it's a great podcast. I know I am a subscriber and I listen to it every time it comes out. And also he has the Tim and Jim show, and also
and we've got to get you scheduled on that, Alan.
Yeah, so. I was delighted to come on. And then also Dealcasters with Amazon as well, and he has loads of other bits and pieces going on as well. So do connect and reach out to Jim, because he is one of the good guys, and definitely a experienced marketeer and a very good friend as well. So Jim, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you, and thanks so much for sharing all this fantastic advice on virtual networking and virtual events and how we should promote it. It's been an absolute pleasure to sit and chat with you today, and we thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Alan, and thank you to all your listeners out there. And keep listening to Alan. He knows his stuff.
Talk to you soon. Bye-bye. Hey, thanks for joining us today on the Social Media Talks podcast, and hopefully you learned some great information and also insights from our guests today. And if you'd like to listen to any of our previous podcasts, you can log on to our website at compassmedia.ie/podcasts. And all of our podcasts are available on all the usual podcast providers. And we would be delighted if you would leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, as we are always thrilled to receive your feedback on any of the programs. You can also subscribe to the podcast there, so you never miss an episode as well. And if you'd like the show notes for this episode or for any of the previous episodes, please log on to our website at compassmedia.ie/show notes. And if you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, please do get in contact with us. All you have to do is email us at smtalks@compassmedia.ie. And if you'd like to find out more about the services that Compass Media provide, from social media marketing and training to podcast services, please visit our website for more details. You can also reach out and connect with me across all of the social networks, including Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and I will personally answer every one of your requests. That's about all for today. I've been Alan Hennessy from Compass Media for the Social Media Talks podcast, and we look forward to talking to you next week. And as I always say, be social. So until next week at the same time, bye-bye.
Social Media Talks podcast is a production from compassmedia.ie.
The Social Media Talks podcast is sponsored by Content Cal. For more information, visit their website at contentcal.io. We would also like to remind you the Social Media Talks podcast is proudly supported by charityradio.ie.